Hi guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to talk about substance materials. And this is an fortunate and unfortunate reality of 3D work, right? If you want to have amazing looking renders, you need to have amazing looking models and amazing looking textures. It's part of the drill, right? There's no way you're going to be able to create amazing looking compositions with just like spheres and cubes. So you do need to have models and textures working perfectly nice for you. And today we're going to talk about one very cool thing that we have here in Polyhaven as well, which are textures. So thanks to the sharing of the internet, we have access to a lot of textures that we can use for our elements. So for instance, this one right here, let's say we want to have a very nice wood table on our scene. And maybe we are not really good at texturing, but we do know how to create a plane, like the one that we have right here. And it's just a matter of using this texture that we have over here. Or maybe, I think this one is very a little bit better, like a worn table, looks quite nice. So the way this works is up here, we're going to be able to download specific texture maps from our objects. I'm clicking the little options here to select specifically which ones I want. And I'm going to use this ambient occlusion roughness metallic. I'm going to use the diffuse. We don't want displacement right now. Displacement is good for things that really change the silhouette. In this case, this is not changing the silhouette that much. And we want a normal map with OpenGL options right here. So once we have this, we just download the objects. I believe they are downloaded at 4K textures. You don't have to download them, by the way. They're going to be there on your project files. But I want to show you how to use this in case you want to use any other materials later on. So over here on the textures, we're just going to bring all of these things into our source images folder. Give me just 1 second. So you're just going to grab, and to keep things organized, I actually like to have a folder for each specific textures. So I'm going to call this a wood table, and right here we're just gonna like get this guys in there. There we go. So now we're gonna jump into Maya and we're gonna do the connection. I'm gonna show you how to do the connection using a plugin, which is the Substance plugin, and it makes our lives so much easier because it's definitely a little bit what's the word, it's time consuming to do this by hand. So I'm going to go here to the Substance element. To do this, you first need to make sure that the Substance plugin is turned on. So you're going to go to Windows, Substance, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and you're going to type in Substance. If for any reason you don't have the Substance plugin installed, make sure to go to the internet and download it, Substance for Maya. It's completely free. Install it and you're going to be good to go. So once you have this here on the shelf, you're going to have this option right here, which is Apply Workflow to Maps. I'm going to click this one. I'm going to select which workflow we're going to be using, which in this case is Arnold, of course. And I'm going to select multiple maps. We're going to go to our wood tables, and we're going to select the IRM, which is Ambient Occlusion Roughness Metallic, the diffuse, and the normal map. Sometimes it won't know, like if the terminology or the naming convention is weird to it, it won't know. So in this case, I'm just going to do the diffuse, which is the color, and we're going to do the normal, which is this one right here. And I'm going to do the roughness, which is the IRM, but I'm going to show you one extra thing right here. I'm actually also going to do the occlusion with the same one. And what's going to happen is as follows. When I hit apply, it's going to create a new material up here on the hypershade. And it's going to apply all of the necessary things that we need for our elements. This one right here, I believe. Yeah, it's the last AI standard that you have. There we go. So this AI standard, first thing I'm going to do is going to change the name to M Wood Table, so that I know that this is the material that we're going to be using. And we need to change a couple of things. So for instance, right now we have here the ambient or the diffuse, which is the color, and it's being multiplied, or it should be multiplied by the roughness or the ambient occlusion, but it's not doing that. It's actually multiplying it by a lot of different colors, and that's why we get this sort of like orangey look. So I'm gonna break this thing away, and I'm just gonna connect the red channel to all of the inputs. So let's open the inputs, and we're gonna connect all of the red channels right here. There we go. So that way we should recover the original color, and we should have a little bit of ambient occlusion. Now this one right here is very important that it's set to raw, and alpha is luminance, both of them. Now this is supposed to be the roughness, and again we don't want to connect the or we do want to connect the, well, not the alpha channel. In this case we want to connect the green channel, which is the roughness, because in name ARM, it's ambient occlusion or the A for ambient occlusion, the R for roughness, and the M for metallic. We actually don't have any metallic, but if you want to like connect the metalness, you can do. Should be the exact same thing. But everything else should be already set to the proper like elements and proper setups. So now if we just grab this plane and assign the existing M Wood table material, and we go to the render, we're gonna be able to render this thing really nicely. Let's just wait a little bit for this to load. Remember, every time we render a new texture, it needs to convert the textures using the texture file converter. And once that's done, it will render the thing. So let's just give it a couple more seconds. And there we go. So as you can see, now we have this very nice like wood table on the back part right here. It seems like it's, I'm not sure if it's trying to render using, am I using GPU? Yeah, I am using GPU. So there we go, that's the table. And as you can see, it looks a lot better and it makes our pieces look quite nicer. Now, one thing I don't like about the pieces is that the materials that I'm using are really, really simple, and I would like them to be a little bit more complex. So I'm gonna talk about a very cool material that we have here inside of Arnold, which is a subsurface material. So these pieces right now on the black marble, I only added this sort of like black color to the base color, and that's it. But marble has this tendency to let some light go through. It's one of those materials that makes things look a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go down here to subsurface, and I'm going to turn subsurface on. And the base color, I'm actually going to turn it off. And the subsurface color is going to be the same like brownish color that we have right here. If we just do this, if we just leave it like this and we render, what's going to happen is now the pieces will have this sort of interesting halo on the edges, where things that are a little bit thinner or not as thick will let a little bit of light go through. And it's going to look a little bit more interesting. It's definitely taking a little bit longer. It could be also all of the denoisers that we have right here. So I'm going to turn them off for just a second so that we don't have to worry about that render time. And you can see right here, for instance, here on the queen, you can see that the crown of the queen is white because the material that we selected has a radius of white. So it's letting white light go through, or it's absorbing white light. So in this case, if we change this to, again, another sort of like brown color, we're going to have this sort of like reddish tone on the effect, and it's going to make the pieces look a little bit more interesting there on the borders, as you can see right there. If we make this thing a little bit lighter, you're going to see the change here, and this is going to look a little bit lighter as well. So it depends on the kind of effect that you want. I don't want as much subsurface right now. It's very important that we're working on real scale, otherwise this would not work properly. And now let's do the white pieces. So very similar, we're just going to grab one of the white pieces. We're going to turn off the color here, turn on the subsurface. The subsurface color is going to be the same color. And usually the radius is pretty much the same color, but lighter. So something like this, like a cream color. And now when we render, you're going to see that there's a lot more noise because this is one of those materials that's really, really noisy. But we're going to get this sort of like a marble effect. See how it looks very like milky? It's not like a complete flat color. It makes it look a lot more realistic, if I may say so. So I like these colors, but I would like to do this color or I would like to add a material for the border of the board as well. Like I like the inner side of things, but the outer side looks a little bit too CG. Like the reflections are too perfect, and that's one immediate tell to know that something is a little bit too CG. So let's go with that. So there's a couple of ways in which we can handle this, but I want to show you one that hopefully some of you have access to. If not, don't worry, I'm going to provide one of the assets. But if you are a subscriber of the Adobe Substance Suite, when you search any type of material that you can use inside of Substance Painter, you can also use this sort of materials in other softwares such as Maya, like this SBSR archive element. So if I just hit download here, I'm going to get this SBSR, and I'm going to move this one, of course, to our setup. So I'm gonna go real quick to our, this one I'm not gonna have on source images. This one's gonna be on assets, same as the common canvas that we use for the other place. So if you have one of this, there's a very quick and easy way to import them into Maya to use them as a material. So you're gonna go here to the hypershade, you're gonna hit tab, and you're gonna write substance, and you're gonna locate this substance node texture. Once you locate this, you're going to load, of course, the substance node here from your assets folder, this wood wench, hit open, and there we go. Now, in this one, we need to go down here, select Arnold, and create a network. And what this will do is it will automatically create the whole network that we need to generate that material, as you can see right here. Very, very cool material. Now, we don't need a height map, so I'm going to go here to substance nodes, and down here, these are the outputs that are being generated. I don't need a height map, so I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this M Wood, I think it was called Wedge, right? So, Wedge. Now what I can do is I can go to the board, or to the edges of the board. This face is right here. And there's actually an easier way to select. As you can see, this already have this M Wood material on the outside. So what I can do is I can go to the hypershade, look for the M Wood material, which is this one. Right click and say select objects with material. And as you can see, all of the faces are going to be selected. And then I can go to the M wood wedge, right click, and assign material to selection. And technically that should change the material to the wedge material, and I think I can see it right there. There we go. So now let's just very quickly save. Oh, I shouldn't have saved there. My bad. I shouldn't save. I just saved on top of the chess set start. I'll see what I can do. So now we're just gonna go over here, and I'm gonna go into or sorry, one thing I need to make sure is that we have UVs, because if we don't have UVs, then this is not gonna work. And as you can see, we don't. So what I'm gonna do, or we do, it kind of looks like we do. Let's give a shot to the render. Maybe we do have UVs. I remember doing UVs for this one, but it's been a while, so let's take a look. So let's just render real quick. It's going to translate the textures, and yeah, okay, so it does have UVs, and as you can see, the grain of the wood is going in the direction of the length of the wood. So that's what we want. That's what we want to see, because that tells us that it's been built properly. So as you can see, just by changing textures, just by adding some cool textures to the scene, everything's going to look even better, right? Like the cinematic look that we're going for is going to be it's going to be there. So now we're going to talk about one more thing regarding what's the word, regarding the camera, before we jump onto the next part, which is the post-production side of things. So if you guys remember, when we were taking a look at the camera, let's grab this one, panels, looks were selected, we decided on one specific shot, which was this one, and it's fine, but we can go for something a little bit more interesting. So if you remember, we had like this shot right here, which was a little bit better. I'm gonna go for another one. So let's go to something a little bit more of a close-up, where we can kind of like see some pieces on the first part of the element, on the middle ground of the element, and then on the back part of the element. So whenever we're seeing a composition, we not only need to think about the flat composition, we also need to think about the 3D composition. And usually we're going to have something called the foreground, which in this case, this is where the horse is, where the rook is, some of the pawns. We have the middle ground, or the midground, which is right here, and then we have the background, right? Like all of the pieces on the back, like this little pawn right here. And it's very important that we understand these elements, because there's one very cool thing about cameras that we can use to make these things look even better. So first of all, let's get a render of what we have right now. Let's go to the shot cam. Are we not in the shot cam? Yeah. Let's say render, update full scene. And there we go. So as you can see, this is a more interesting composition, because we're actually really close to the pieces, especially like the rook and the horse and everything in here. The light is, we already know is working quite nicely. And we have this very nice like background, like dark background, giving more focus to the whole thing. Well, the first thing we can change is, of course, the focal length. Right now we're working with the traditional 35mm focal length. But what if we wanted to make this more extreme? Well, if we want to give this some sort of like epic effect, we can go into a more like intense and dramatic looking focal length. So let's go all the way down to 18. And what's going to happen, as you can see here, as we get closer and we move these things around, is that we're really going to be pushing the perspective of the thing. We're going to be distorting the image quite a bit. Let's find another nice composition here. There we go. And what's going to happen, as I was mentioning, is we are going to be distorting everything. So let's save this one real quick right here, and let's do a new render. And look at the difference. Look at how intense this thing changes. And it's not that we're distorting the geometry, right? Like the geometry is exactly the same. The one thing that is changing is the focal length of the camera. So the focal length is going to really give us a very interesting look. I'm actually going to turn off the color so that I can focus on everything a little bit more, because I want to make sure that we can get a really, really nice composition. This is what I call like a V composition, where everything's pointing to one corner. In this case, it's this corner over here. So we can make sure that this is really, really intense and really interesting. Something like this. Now let's take a look at the render. And there we go. So it looks quite nice. I'm not super like sold on this one right here, because it kind of looks weird. So maybe 18 is a little bit too much. Let's try going for something like a 24. Because I do want to see like the border of the table as well, like a little bit of the border. So something like this. Let's give another shot. There we go. That looks really, really interesting. So we have this sort of like a V-shaped composition, where we have this hidden arrow pointing towards us, and it's kind of like opening, right? Opening the whole picture so that we can appreciate what's going on here. We can make this a little bit more intense as well by changing again the angles a little bit more, so it's not like a super sharp V. and that way we can see a little bit more. We're going to be able to see a little bit more of the chessboard. And yeah, I mean, this is looking quite nice. Now, how can we make this even better? Well, once we know that we have a nice focal length, another of the things that we can do, besides turning on like the lens effects and the correction, like the color corrections and stuff, like we can talk about something called a depth of field. But since this is a little bit more of a technical topic, I want to wait until the next video to show you. So make sure to get to this point, find a cool composition for your chessboard, and get ready to add a little bit of depth of field to our whole thing. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.